What's up everybody, welcome back to a brand new video on Lexalexus, a brand new setup for today. Very excited to try this out. I've wanted to try this style out for a long time. I've wanted it since I got the new camera, and I've got to say, I think it actually looks rather nice. Let me know what you think of this setup for a video in the comments down below, as I'm always wanting to make sure I improve enough for you guys. Before we cover the review, to go through the crazy scorelines we saw in the Championship a couple of days ago, on the left hand side of the screen are the updated standings for the Championship Prediction League. So if anyone wanted to participate in the league but has not done so yet, you can still participate. All you've got to do is correctly predict the score predictions that took place in this weekend. And it's still Charlie who leads the way, so Charlie will be getting the shout out at this moment of time. I did alright, but still not quite enough to catch Charlie. I've got to really up my game in these next couple of game weeks if I want to have any chance of potentially winning this league. If you guys like what you see, please do hit the like button. As you see from the target, we've got 30 likes as a target, which is probably quite ambitious. It's typically what I'll set for a stream, but why not? Let's go for it for today. So 30 likes will be absolutely incredible if you can. Please also hit the subscribe button, which is in the bottom right corner of the screen. You can also click the subscribe button just below the playback on the video. My social medias are also down there. The Instagram is a little bit changed, but if you search up that name, you should be able to find my account as well. And yeah, that's all I've got to say about the intro. I spent way too much time with that. Let's cover the bit that you guys want me to cover, which is the Championship. My reaction to the 12 games that took place in the last couple of days. So the first game I'll talk about is the early kickoff that took place on Saturday, Rotherham, Blackburn. It ended 4-0 Rotherham, and I'm telling you this when I was calculating the prediction league points, not a single soul predicted Rotherham for a win. They were completely undermined leading into this game, because you can see from their form there, they had 3 defeats in their last 4, so definitely not a lot of faith was given for this Rotherham team. 4 shots on target, and it was 4 goals. And this was something I discussed at the start of the season when I was talking about Rotherham, where they used their quality of chances to take the game away from their opposition. And this was one of the very first and few times I've seen them successfully do that with Matt Taylor now in charge of Rotherham. So I'm really pleased for them in a way, because I think a lot of pressure has been put on them considering how well they started in the season. They got really good results this time against a Blackburn team who are no pushovers. They did have no Ben Brereton Diaz, but the lineups, you know, was still good enough for a Blackburn team to beat this Rotherham team. Having Vale, Gallagher, Dack, Hedges starting, they definitely could have done a lot better from what they did going into that as well. 4 different goal scorers as well, and when Rotherham took the lead, you know, within the first minute, I think by that point it was a very tricky task. It was only 1-0 at half-time though, and what was disappointing is that Blackburn could have used that half-time team talk to motivate themselves to get back into this. And unfortunately, in the second half, Blackburn didn't really create a really momentous chance. It was Rotherham that, when they bombed forward, they looked really confident doing so, and hence they won by a really emphatic scoreline. And that's a really good win for Rotherham as well, because it puts them in 19th place, and it gives them a 4-point gap from Huddersfield as well. So yes, had they not won that game, and in fact if they lost that game, they would have narrowly been ahead of them, just above them in the relegation zone. So a crucial win, but it's not game over yet. They really got to make sure they carry on with this form. Blackburn most definitely need an immediate response. This is a game they will not want to remember any time soon. This is almost as bad when they lost to Preston heavily 4-1 quite recently. Another high goal scoring game was at Ashton Gate, and another team that was looking really low in confidence was Bristol City, but they won by putting 4 past Birmingham, as you can see here. Likewise with Rotherham, who I just talked about, they were winless in their last 4 games. So Bristol City, unsurprisingly, weren't given as much faith as a lot of people predicted Birmingham for a win, myself included, although there were a couple of you that predicted Bristol City to get a result. And undoubtedly, I think it's just down to the options that they have. And 2 players deserve a shout out for me. Cameron Pring for getting 2 assists to 2 of the goals, and Mark Sykes for his emphatic second half performance to really take the game away from Birmingham. Birmingham were very annoyed in the first half. I think one of their goals, they questioned if there was a foul in the build-up there. And definitely Birmingham looked like they were playing the better stuff, but Bristol City were able to find a way for them to get in front. But in the second half, I definitely think Bristol City really took over. I think their confidence was restored and Birmingham just could not handle it. It's good to see Rida Kadra going on the score sheet, his first goal since joining Birmingham in the January transfer window. So hopefully for him, he will score more goals. But unfortunately, it was a very disappointing result for Birmingham. Bristol City, however, this was, likewise with Rotherham, a very crucial win for them. They're on 32 points now, 17th place in the table. Any 3 points now, considering how tight the relegation battle is like gold dust. And Bristol City would definitely take that. And they would hope that they can maybe kick on, because when you think about it, it's actually, they're not far away from even entering the conversation of the top 6 either. You're on 32 points, and Blackburn, who lost very heavily, on 42. And we've still got over 15 games left of the season. So it's definitely not a foregone conclusion yet. But at the moment, with their current expectations to make sure that they don't fall into relegation battle, Bristol City are doing exactly that, which is good. Burnley just showing that they can just win at any sort of circumstance and team at the moment. They beat Coventry by 1-0, but they would feel very pleased to pick up the 3 points based on what they had to produce to in order to get that. Coventry were definitely very tricky to break down. So with the statistics, you can see 10 shots to 8. Coventry didn't have a single shot on target, but I definitely think they were aimed to get at least a 0-0 draw out of it. Burnley, to be fair to them, they did try. You can see that Burnley, failed to make an impact in that first half at all. If anything, it looked more like that Coventry were trying to get something there. But look at the contrast here. 7 shots to 1. So whatever Coventry were doing that first half, they fell short doing it in the second half. But you've got to thank, I think, for a Burnley perspective, Vincent Kompany. He clearly got his team ticking the right way to deal with Coventry and to deal with that frustration that they were putting on them, because I think Burnley were shook in a way and frustrated for how tough it was to break this Coventry team down. But it took a half-time team talk and a whole second half of football for them to get something out of it. And you can see with the goal scorer, it was Jordan Bayer, the centre-back, who managed to score that. I would assume if it was a centre-back, it would have been a set-piece situation. I didn't see the goal, but I will at some point see the goal back. So that was happened in the 82nd minute as well. Even if Burnley drew, we'd think, okay, Burnley are not as immortal as we think we are. They can be vulnerable to dropping points. But you see this form here from Burnley, and you see that they are 16 points clear from the playoffs. It is looking very unlikely that Burnley are even going to have to worry that they may fall into this position right now. They could honestly wrap up promotion by March. That's how early they could wrap this up, which is ridiculous to think of it that way, but that is absolutely surreal. Only 2 losses they've lost so far this season as well, and they honestly could get 100 points as well. They're already nearly at 60 points, and we've still got over 15 games left to play as well. In fact, way over that actually, 19 to be precise. So we've still got, in a way, we've got 57 points still available. That is crazy. Now, obviously with Coventry, it was not a great moment for them. They've only won 1 game in their last 5. So Coventry struggling a little bit with their form. They definitely need to try and resolve something at the moment. I think a lot of frustration, although Coventry have played some really tough teams quite recently. They had played Sheffield United quite recently as well. But with those 2 draws in the middle where they had them against lower positioned Bristol City and Cardiff, you would expect Coventry to beat them. So Coventry potentially need to sort a couple of things out. Maybe get some players in the transfer window to ensure that squad depth. You would hope now with new ownership that the club will be moving in more of a positive direction rather than regressing down the table. So this game against Cardiff and Wigan, it ended as a 1-1 draw, which was the only score prediction I got spot on and correct, and I've got Will Keane to thank for that one. But the biggest news came out of this one from this weekend. Mark Hudson has been sacked by Cardiff City. It's the second time that Cardiff have departed a manager in this season, and it's the second time that they've changed managers in 4 months. You do question the strategy that Cardiff are approaching with the rest of the season. Cardiff are definitely not in a safe position yet. They're just above the relegation zone, but have got a 3-point gap. But Huddersfield, as you see, do have a game in hand, which can make things quite tricky if Huddersfield win that game in hand. In terms of the goal scorers, O'Dowda and Will Keane were the 2 goal scorers, and it was a game that really blossomed very late on. It wasn't like a particularly entertaining game right from the start, but you can see from here very little happened in that first half. Only 1 shot on target in that entire first half. Second half, it looked like it was more open, and it was actually Wigan creating the stronger chances, looking more likely they would get something out of it. So maybe the sacking was aimed more at the performance, but I would feel that if Cardiff had picked up all 3 points here and Will Keane had not scored that equaliser, I think Mark Hudson will still be here as a job in a manager. So I think Will Keane is to thank for Cardiff now being managerless. They are exploring Neil Warnock to get him out of retirement. I don't know if it's really right for him, to be honest. I just let him retire in peace. He's done so much for the footballing community for decades, and I think it'll be a bit unfair for him to be thrown into a really catastrophic situation that they are. I know he's done it before, but this was over 5 years ago, so I think Cardiff just got to be a little bit careful of what they're currently thinking to get themselves out of this. With Wigan, it's not a very helpful result either. They're still at the bottom of the table, really poor form. I think they've not won in their last 13 games, so it's the longest winless one in the league. So Wigan definitely need to sort themselves out as soon as they can, otherwise they will start getting left behind. A battle at the bottom of the table between Hull and Huddersfield, it ended as a 1-1 draw. And it'd be a draw that suits Hull more than Huddersfield because Hull are in a more privileged position, but Huddersfield led for so long in that game, and to concede in the 98th minute has to be heartbreaking for this Huddersfield team, considering based on the live table they would have only been 1 point of getting out of the relegation zone. Michael Helix scored the first goal in the game for Huddersfield, and actually his only other goal for Huddersfield was against Hull City in a reverse fixture. Fun fact for you there. But in terms of Hull City, they were, as you can see from the attack momentum, they did look more like the likely team to get something out of this. 14 shots to 8, 5 shots to 6. So to be fair, Huddersfield improving the quality of their chances and the efficiency of them as well, which is encouraging. But off the ball, they clearly didn't have a lot of control of it, and they did concede one too many chances for Hull. And Oscar Estupiñán getting the only goal for Hull in the 98th minute. Devastating for Huddersfield because you can see here they're on 26 points, 3 points behind Cardiff. They still got a game in hand, of course, but a win would have put them on 28, where it would look a lot more optimistic for them to get out of this predicament. Hull with this draw, they still stretch their unbeaten run actually, so fair play to Hull and Liam Rosenior. 34 points now. They are breaching a bit of a gap from the bottom 3. Definitely not safe yet. I definitely think there's still some things for Hull to work on. But I can definitely see the improvement there, and I could definitely see the optimism now with this Hull City side, considering how quickly they were descending down the table near the end, or short out Avalardse's time as manager. Can I just say, what an incredible game we had at Kenilworth Road. Luton 2, West Brom 3. We had 2 incredible performances from 2 really good teams, I've got to say. I think both Luton and West Brom have earned my respect after this game. So, story folds, Luton find themselves 2-0 up in 10 minutes, and this is against a West Brom team that at the time I think only conceded 2 championship goals since Carlos Corberán was reintroduced in the championship managing West Brom. So this was very unusual for West Brom to be in that situation. The only other time that West Brom conceded more than 2 goals when Corberan was in charge was in their FA Cup game. I believe it was against Chesterfield or Cheltenham. It was one of those clubs. But after that, when Carlton Morris and Elijah Adebayo made it 2-0, West Brom had a glimmer of hope. Daryl DK, who had to step in for Thomas Asante, made it 2-1. And going into half-time, Luton still had the high ground, but 2 quick-fire goals from Malumbai and Connor Townsend turned this game around completely. And it's moments like this that just speak volumes for how brilliant of a job Corberan has done for this West Brom team. To install that belief is impressive, to say the least. I wouldn't say it was one-sided. I actually do think it was pretty close, but slightly on the edge of West Brom. But it definitely was not one-sided, and I would be very surprised if we see a Luton side now drop down the table, because this was a performance but Luton shouldn't be ashamed of. Maybe only with the defending with the 3 goals and conceding 3. But other than that, they couldn't do anything else there. To score 2 at West Brom, would be an incredible achievement for many clubs, considering how well West Brom have been defending since Corberan's come in. Luton, 9th place, but obviously, they are still in the mix within the top 6. But West Brom are now in the top 6 for the first time this season. 4 wins in a row. Corberan and Carrick right now, the stories that they are giving those 2 teams, considering where these 2 teams were entering the bottom 3 in the first couple of games in the season, to see them there now is impressive, to say the least. And that is why I love the Championship. The table could literally flip upside down within a couple of months, and this is a really good example of that. So I'm pleased for both Luton and West Brom, and I honestly hope that they kick on and both have a great season, because they gave us one hell of a game. We were just speaking about Middlesbrough and Michael Carrick. Middlesbrough can just continuously win, and this was against a Millwall team where Millwall had been doing quite well with their form. You can see here that Millwall, was stretching a bit of an unbeaten run there, and Millwall at that time would have been in the top 6 too. So this was a real top 6 battle that Middlesbrough were getting themselves into, and it was definitely a very frustrating first half again, likewise with Burnley, with Middlesbrough trying to break down this Millwall team. And we've seen it many times before when Millwall do it successfully, where they disrupt the play by fouling the opposition, and they hit on the counter-attack, and they're normally very, very deadly with that. But unfortunately, they didn't really execute it perfectly, and Middlesbrough did find a breakthrough. Marcus Force getting the only goal in that game, making it 1-0 to Middlesbrough. And that was a very, very crucial moment there for the fact that he did manage to get that only goal there. If we look at that stats, look how close it is. 7 shots to 8, 3 shots on target to 2. So by the looks of things, there wasn't many chances being created in this game at all. So it's definitely 2 teams that was set up very, very well. And clearly it was a little bit like a chess game. It wasn't highly attacking, but when Middlesbrough had to be attacked, they were clinical, and that is how they got that win there. And that win puts them only 1 point behind Watford. Now that is mad, to think that Middlesbrough are only 1 point behind Watford. I find it a little bit sad that there's such a big gap between Watford and Sheffield United on points, considering the implications to be 2nd and 3rd. But if we just separate them into groups, and we're considering the playoff teams to the best of the rest, the fact that Middlesbrough are that high up is incredible. Millwall, like I said with Luton, I expect them to be within the game. And a lot of the time I do underestimate Millwall, and I do think they do have the potential. I just always have their concerns if they're consistent enough, because if they were consistent, they would definitely have got into the top 6 by now. So I do hope Millwall do, because considering they're a non-parachute payment club, to be in this position against financial superpowers in the Championship would be an inspirational story for them. And I definitely think they've got the potential, and the manager as well, with the right experience for it. Oh dear me, Preston. This was not a good home showing for you at all. And this needs to be a time where I show the home table, because Preston, you can see here, have had 4 home defeats in a row. Doesn't that say a lot? it says volumes to me. When you lose your home games, you know, you do lose the support of the fans. You do lose the confidence of the fans. And considering this was a Norwich team where you can see from the table here, Norwich were really struggling. 3 defeats in their last 4. This was the first game that David Wagner was permanent manager in terms of a championship. And my goodness me, I mean, what an impression that he's given to this Norwich team to win by 4-0. It's the only time Norwich has scored 4 goals in any game this season. Timo Pukki and Kieran Dowell getting a brace each, really. So both of them deserve a shout out as well. But Preston's back line will be asking so many questions there. The back line of Diaby, Story and Lindsay have definitely got to hang their heads in shame. They did not deal with the threat of Hernandez, Pukki, Dow and Sarah as well. His link-up play at times was sensational as well. So ultimately, I just think Wagner, you know, just told his team just to really go for it, really. I don't think he could have implemented too much with the little time that he was here, but they clearly, you know, were really, really well in control. And I think what also helped, which, you know, contributed to Rotherham winning by 4-0 as well, was them scoring an early goal. They scored in the 30th minute and having a quick double to make it 2-0 in the 16th minute, I just think just took the game away from Preston. And I think they just lost faith. And Preston, with that defeat, it puts them on 37 points. But look at that, only 1 win in 5. That's not great at all. And Ryan Lowe has got to have to answer some serious questions if he cannot improve Preston's form. Norwich, with that win, they now look like that they're back in the running for the top 6. But now they've got to fight for it. And this will be an interesting side of Norwich, because we're used to seeing Norwich, you know, in around the top 2 or, you know, dominating the league by winning by a certain number of points. So it's fresh to see Norwich having to be challenged in the championship, if you know what I mean. One high-scoring game to another, we go to Reading versus QPR, which ended as a 2-2 draw. And once again, just like with Luton and West Brom, I mean, what a comeback we see here. A tale of 2 halves is the common metaphor when we have to talk about 2 teams performing at different stages. You know, Jeff Hendrick, the former QPR loanee, makes it 2-0 to Reading against his former club, where he had not scored for quite a while for Reading there. But in the second half, Tyler Roberts came into life. I mean, what an incredible performance he brought out in the 15-minute period. 66 minutes was 2-1, and it was Jamal Lowe, I actually think, who got that goal there. So that was definitely one of the newer signings that we saw from QPR's part. It's good to see that QPR are already benefiting with their January transfers, and that is, you know, what I would have wanted to see. And definitely QPR, without having invested very, very smartly with that. 17 shots to 10, 4 shots to 3 there. So very, very close again, actually. I would dare say it was pretty close, actually, apart from the total shots in the possession, of course. So once again, I just think both of these teams will be in a decent position in the table. My only concern with both is whether they're going to be consistent enough to even enter the conversation within the top 6. QPR, of course, have fallen off from that, being in the top 6 relatively comfortably at the start of the season. Critchley has got to answer a lot of critics, really, considering the position that QPR was dealt with. And, you know, QPR fans are just going to have to deal with this season with a pinch of salt, knowing the circumstances they were put under. Reading just comfortably in 14th place in the moment, but definitely not quite safe yet, because you look how high scoring actually the bottom 3, 4, 5 are. You know, they win a couple and then Reading, you know, lose a couple, and then all of a sudden they're dragged back down into it. So I definitely think the competitiveness in the bottom half of the table is really big this year. So definitely keep your eyes on everyone, because you can see from how quickly teams can move up and move down the table. Things can change for the better or the worse, depending on decisions there. Great result, I would dare say, maybe more so for QPR, considering they had to fight for the comeback, but definitely a really entertaining performance there and game from both teams there. Sheffield United win again. It's by 3-1 against Stoke City, who have now lost 3 games in a row, and I would be a little bit worried if I was a Stoke fan, considering that they're only 4 points above the relegation zone. Sheffield United looked like that they didn't even need to play well. You can see the attack momentum. Stoke actually had more of the attack momentum there. Jayden Bogle with a brace, as you can see. Ilman Ndiaye with the first goal in the 9th minute, and I felt potentially for Stoke fans, when you had that early goal, they think, oh, here we go, you know, they're not going to get anything there. Nick Powell did restore a little bit of hope, and Stoke did improve actually when Sheffield United went 2-0 up. So I think one thing for Sheffield United moving forward is to not take their eyes off the ball and to not lower their press when they've got a 2-goal margin, because you can see that Stoke for a period did work for it. And you can see Stoke had more shots, they had more shots on target, there were more corners there. So Stoke definitely weren't a pushover. They definitely were able to be a good test for Sheffield United. I can't critique Sheffield United too much considering how hard they are at the table, but it's just those tiny things that if they don't address them, it can come to haunt them later on, if that makes sense. So great win for Sheffield United to win by 3 goals and a 2-goal margin there. 54 points, an 11-point gap from the top 6. I mean, that is just ridiculous within itself. Burnley and Sheffield United look like they're cruising to promotion at this moment of time. And as for Stoke, like I said, things have got to be very, very careful for their part at the moment. They've already changed managers. Are they going to do for what Cardiff are doing to change their manager again to fix things? For me, I'd keep Alex Neil in because I do think he's got the experience to make sure Stoke survive at least. And I think with a long-term project, Alex Neil can be relied upon. This could have been a really good game for Sunderland, but unfortunately it ended in a way for Swansea based on a very, very early red card for Luke 09. I need to see the challenge back to determine whether I felt it was a red card. I'll be very interested to hear from the comments actually, from what you thought about that red card decision there, because you can see here they had to make a quick substitution. Yeah, Bats came on, Roberts came off and Back came on, sorry. So definitely it meant that Sunderland, you know, when they looked really good going forward, you can see from that attack momentum there, they looked really promising. But as soon as that shift happened, it went all Swansea pretty much. And unfortunately from that moment onwards, Sunderland were just not going to get back into it. If there's any team you don't not want to go down to 10 men against, it's Swansea, considering how much they hog the ball, how patient they are of their play, and eventually they'll outpass and outrun you, and that's exactly what they did. Pirro scores the first goal. Dan Neil did really well to make it 1-1 actually, and I thought that would make things interesting, but it was short-lived. 6 minutes later, Liam Cullen, who's in real goal scoring form at the moment, makes it 2-1, and Oliver Cooper ends the scoring to make it 3-1. So I definitely felt it was a missed opportunity for Sunderland to get something, considering they had that early red card there. Other than that, their form has been pretty fabulous, really. Apart from that, you know, with that good unbeaten run they had here. Swansea, you can see that they were really struggling with their form, a little bit inconsistent, but now with 2 wins in 3, you know, now their form is starting to turn a corner a little bit. And definitely I feel with Swansea, they're definitely one of the more teams that I can see that's going through a transition, and now we're potentially seeing the transition, you know, have a good effect more consistently than a bad effect. So that's what I hope for Swansea going forward, because I do think it's a very exciting team that is brewing for Swansea at the moment, and you can see that when they've got an advantage, they are can just wipe the floor with many teams. So good win for Swansea. Sunderland will have to hope that they do not crumble in Luke 09's absence. Final game to go through, Watford Blackpool ended 2-0 to the Hornets. A very comfortable win in the end. I mean, at the start of the game, you know, nothing really happened. You know, the only major thing that happened was their tribute to Vialli, which was a really sweet tribute. You know, with his involvement with Chelsea, I was really happy to see that he was given a tribute there at Vicarage Road. Nothing really happened in the first half, but in the second half, things started to be a bit more lively. Adam Mayo made it 1-0, and then 2-0 happened when Ismail Assar converted the penalty, with Maxwell conceding the penalty, which broke my heart because I predicted 1-0 to Watford in that game. So close, but yet so far. And stats-wise, you can see I think Watford earned it. 11 shots to 6, 5 shots to 2. Yeah, Watford to me looking like that they were better there. And it's, you know, the thing is with Blackpool is that they can pull off a great result on their day, but a lot of the time, you know, they for me just look a bit too tentative for my liking. You know, they're in the bottom 3. They need to really go for this. They also, likewise with Wigan, they're going on a bit of a winless run at the moment, and them and Cardiff at 2, you know, they've got to really, really try and recover from that and consider the position that they're in, because as soon as they get one win, you know, we've seen it with Stoke quite recently, we saw it with Bristol City and Rotherham this week, that things look much more better, and they really got to make sure that they find out as soon as they can, because the longer that goes on, the more likely that they're going to be cut away and they will get relegated. So Blackpool definitely got to up their urgency for me. But great win for Watford, 3rd place, but with an 11-point gap from Sheffield United, it's almost like, what's the point at the moment? You know, they will be hoping, and most of the championship will be hoping, that Sheffield United and Burnley close that gap a little bit. But personally, unfortunately, I don't see it. So, as I said, for the top of the table, Burnley, Sheffield United just cruising at the moment, with Watford, Middlesbrough, Blackburn and West Brom now in the top 6. Incredible. And then for the teams in danger, I would consider at this moment of time, everyone from probably Stoke downwards is in relative danger at the moment. I think Rotherham and Bristol City have given themselves a little bit of space at the moment, but give them 2 weeks. If they don't win their games, then they'll be dragged back into it. But yeah, Stoke, Cardiff in danger for me. But the teams in the bottom 3 currently are Wigan, Blackpool and Huddersfield. So guys, that is my Championship Week 27 review. I hope you really liked the video today. If you did, please smash the like button. As you see, we do have a like target. Please do so. It really does help the growth of this channel. Please hit the subscribe button, which is in the bottom right corner. That really does help the growth of this channel too. Social medias are down there in case you want to follow any of my socials. Please also share the video and this channel too, because all those things really do help the community. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary. If it's on the end of this video, as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.